lovely humans, welcome back to my channel. In today's video or podcast, depending on where you are watching / listening to this, we are going to be doing an Ask Me Anything. You guys are so great and submit some questions, and today we're going to go over a few of them. The theme for today's content, you're like, I'm trying to keep it vague depending on the platform, is basically help me spend my money wisely. That was also vague. So without further ado, let's just jump right on into it. Question number 1. How do I know a great deal when I see one? I want such a beautiful wedding for the best prices. I feel like I will have trouble settling on anything in hopes to find something for a better price or thinking there's always going to be something better. And what if I'm making the wrong choice? So this is like a very swirly place to get in your brain, right? It gets very stressful if you're like, what if I just made a huge mistake by booking this person? Or what if I find something better? And in this person's words, what if I'm making the wrong choice? First of all, you don't know a baseline if you don't do any research. So I highly recommend that when, let's say you're looking for a photographer, that you get anywhere from 3 to 5 quotes for what it would look like to photograph your wedding day. So that means that you're contacting 5 different photography companies, having conversations with them in the courting process, if you will, looking at their photos and then asking for a proposal or a contract to take a look at, and then doing some comparing. You don't know what you don't know. So you kind of have to get your hands dirty a little bit and start asking for some information. So now we have a baseline. Here's generally where the costs are falling that we can see. So we've got a good idea of what would be a good amount to spend and maybe a not so good amount to spend, either not enough or too much. We have this whole section of the master plan that has vendor Q&As. So it's how to interview vendors and the questions you should be asking, and more importantly, the answers that you should be looking for. Because 98% of vendor Q&As on the internet are like, how long have you been doing business for? And I'm telling you, that's one of the dumbest questions. I mean, it's helpful in a sense, but I'm not focused on that, especially if you're balling on a budget. You don't have $5,000 to spend on a photographer that's been doing this for 10 years. And if the photographer's been doing this for 10 years and they're only charging $500, I have questions. Some may write. So for me, it's less about the amount of time that they've been doing this and more about, do you like their galleries? Do you feel seen and heard? And do they work within your budget? So I have no problem working with a brand new photographer as long as they work with my client's budget and produce a great product. So I highly recommend joining the master plan, specifically, if nothing else, just for those vendor Q&As. It's literally catered to each and every specific vendor, the questions you should be asking to each individual one. And you can print this up and take it with you. You can have it ready if you're doing a Zoom interview with a vendor, but this way you know the exact answers to look for, which is far more important than having a list of questions to make you look like you know what you're doing. I want such a beautiful wedding for the best prices. Okay, so now we're researching that we can find some good prices. I feel like I'll have some trouble settling on anything in hopes to find something for a better price or think there's always going to be something better. So again, we've established that baseline. We can make a much better educated decision. We can pick someone who works with our budget. We like their galleries and they make us feel heard. And then what if you're worried about making the wrong choice? Well, if you have a big enough pool to pull from, then it's pretty likely that you're not going to feel uneducated in your guess because you spent the time looking for it. I think this is an area where a lot of people overlook this specifically. They kind of only get like 2-3 numbers and they're like, okay, well, I guess I have to pick from one of these, instead of really taking their time to make sure they're researching properly, they're asking the right questions, and they're comparing costs. As far as thinking there's always going to be something better, once you've decided, don't keep looking. Don't keep searching for different photographers. If you signed a contract, you sent over a deposit, you need to stop looking, right? Because I don't want you to have that feeling of, oh shoot, this person is slightly more affordable. They're $500 less. They're in our area and I still really like their galleries. Is it worth, breaking contract with this person to move on to this person? At that point, probably not, because then you'd kiss your deposit goodbye. At a certain point, you have to close Pinterest. At a certain point, you have to stop looking at the knot. At a certain point, you have to stop researching things. And if the swirling starts happening again in your brain, you say, I spent my time, I found the quotes, I read the contracts, I knew what the baseline was for my area, and I felt confident with that decision moving forward. You can reassure yourself that you've taken all of the steps that you needed to take to make the right choice for you. So that way, when that stress of like, oh my gosh, did I make the wrong choice? You can walk yourself through all those steps that you took to ensure that you made the right one. Next question. Is it even possible to keep my overall budget under $5,000 and still afford a wedding planner? No. Nope. I actually, sorry, that was really harsh. I refuse to work with couples who have a budget of less than $20,000. Maybe, less than $20,000, which, on surface level makes me sound like a pompous snotbag. That's not my intent. I don't want anyone who has a budget under $20,000 spending money on me. That's absolutely not. That is a waste of your money. And I'm a wedding planner telling you not to waste your money on a wedding planner, right? What a conundrum. In a situation like this is where you need a really good plan to follow. You either can spend the time putting a plan together on your own, because wedding planning requires a plan, and it's not just kind of like booking things as we go along. If we go back to that first question of how stressful this is, right? And you don't want to make the wrong choice, you got to spend the time doing it properly and book things on time and use your budget appropriately. So this would be a situation where you should probably find a plan on the internet. Of course, I would highly recommend the master plan, because I'm really good at what I do and I made it specifically for couples like this. If you have a $5,000 wedding and you need support, but you cannot afford a full service planner, that's what this is for. Next question. What is your best advice for stopping yourself from obsessing over how expensive everything is? This one is going to be kind of a different tactic for everybody, but I'll tell you how, what my approach would be to this. When putting together your budget, you need to take a very frank and honest look at your current financial state and see what you can afford. How do you do that? Again, we break this down in the master plan, but I'll give you a little quick step-by-step. 1, you want to take a look at your savings. 2, you're going to want to take a look at your monthly budget and see what you can kind of eke over from that to put towards wedding planning. And 3, have the conversation with family members if anyone is contributing. We do have a digital download to help you have this financial conversation with your family members, like parents paying for the wedding. So many people get stressed and awkward about it. So I get it. So we created like a little talk through sheet for you, which you can print up and have with you or just take a look at beforehand, just to kind of give you some guidelines to operate off of. So once you've collected this information, what do we have in savings that we're willing to commit to this? What can we take out of our monthly budget? And then what are we receiving as gifts or contributions towards our event? That's when you go, do we want to spend this money? You got to put yourself in the driver's seat of this situation and say, I am choosing to spend this money. Okay? I am saying this $10,000 I am putting towards one singular day. That is a choice that I am making. The next step, you are going to put that money into a budget breakdown. Again, surprise, surprise, we have one in the master plan. A lot of times people will say, oh, what's your budget? What's your budget? And you're like, oh, my budget's $20,000. That's a number. That's not a budget. That's like the hard line of where you'd like to stop spending money. But that doesn't tell you anything about where you should put that money. So once we have the big number, the overall budget, we need a budget breakdown. So then as you're doing this research, you can kind of plinko different vendors into the correct category. So this venue is about 20% of our budget over here. This photographer is a little bit more than we have allocated for our budget here, which means we'll need to kind of take away from something else, lower the budget on another category. But in this perspective, again, from the driver's seat, the wedding planning isn't happening to you. There's a lot of talk around the wedding industry telling you how much money you have to spend and just trying to get all your hard-earned dollars. That does not have to be the case if you don't let it, okay? And we can get into the wedding tax debate at another time, all right? That's not what I'm trying to do right now. What I'm trying to say is you need to be proactive and make decisive decisions as opposed to indecisive decisions, which would not be decisions at all. Instead of reacting to the prices around you, you dictate what your budget should be by using this breakdown. And then it becomes a lot easier to not obsess over every single dollar that you spend because you've already predetermined your overall budget and you've allocated every single dollar. So if you find yourself starting to stress out about how much stuff costs and the panic kind of starts rising again, you can bring yourself back to, we have committed this money and I know exactly where everything's going. I am not being attacked by these wedding numbers. I am choosing these wedding numbers. So for me, honestly, it's a money mindset thing, making the choice to spend that money and then making the choice to stick to that budget. So that way you're not on the receiving end of a bunch of stressful numbers, but you are dictating what those numbers are. And last but not least, this question I could probably spend like forever answering. How to have a wedding on a budget but not look cheap. Minimalist. Elegant minimalism it's hot. Okay, it's spicy. I love a good minimalist wedding. In fact, if you want to head over to my Pinterest, I've got a lot of inspiration ideas over there for you guys to take a look at. If you can keep the decor very clean, very elegant, very simple, we're talking clean lines, maybe a couple of bud vases as a centerpiece on the table with 1 or 2 stems in each. There's something very profound and very visually relaxing about going for a more minimalistic approach. So as you are researching things for your inspiration, I would use words like modern and simple. Simple modern wedding, simple wedding. Think simple centerpieces, simple photo booth if you want to do one of those, very elegant elegant and simple wedding gown if you're wearing one. And the upside of all of this is if you keep that decor really minimalistic, it actually lessens the DIY that you need to do. It's a lot easier to put stuff together. It simplifies everything. So not only is it very simple and easy and charming to look at, and the added benefit of simplicity is it makes it a lot easier to DIY a lot of these elements. If you're only putting a single rose in each bud vase, that's going to be something that you could probably manage on your own, as opposed to a full-blown asymmetrical, oversized arrangement that's going to be in the center of your table. That's less DIY-able. As always, if you are stressed out about wedding planning, please come join me in the master plan. This is exactly what I do. I'm the best in the biz. My head might be a little bit too big for this office right now, but I can tell you I have been intentionally helping budget couples plan their weddings for over 8 years now, doing wedding content online for over 6 years, and I've been running the master plan for 5 years now. And I'm here to tell you that there's literally nothing else like it on the internet. So if you are stressed out about planning your wedding, please come join me over there. I'm there for live monthly calls, and I walk you through absolutely everything that you need to plan your wedding day. No cap. I don't know if I can say that seriously in a sentence, but I just did. So that's what we have for this week's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching or listening if you're over on the podcast. If you are watching the video and you would like to listen to the podcast, it's Engaged with Jamie Wolfer, and you can find it anywhere where podcasts are played. If you listen to the podcast, you can find me over on YouTube at Jamie Wolfer, because that's my name. Don't wear it out. How about you? Do you have any questions? Drop them in the comments down below, and who knows, you might be featured on our next Q&A. And until next time, bye, guys.